Everything you have ever known had a beginning, the first breath, the first light, the first morning of the world. Every river traced back far enough, every family, every nation, every star. And underneath all of it, one question that will not leave you alone. Where did it all come from? And why? Long before the pyramids, before the wheel, before writing had barely learned to walk, someone sat down to answer that. Not with a theory, with a story that opens with 5 words that have echoed for 3,000 years. In the beginning, God created. This is Genesis, the book of beginnings. 50 chapters, the opening act of the entire Bible. Its Hebrew name is Bereshit, which simply means in the beginning. And here is the strange thing. It opens with the whole universe, galaxies, oceans, every living thing, and it ends with a single ordinary family in a foreign land waiting on a promise. From a cosmos to a family. That is the journey of this book, and by the end of these 20 minutes, you will see the one golden thread that ties it all together. How a story about the birth of everything becomes a story about how God chose to bless the whole world. So let's go back, all the way back, to before the first morning. In the beginning, there is no shape to anything. The earth is formless and empty. Darkness lies over the deep, and the Spirit of God hovers over the face of the waters, like a bird over its nest. Then a voice, and everything changes. Let there be light, and there is light. Notice how God creates, not with muscle, not with war. He simply speaks, and what he speaks becomes. Day by day, the chaos is pushed back, and the world is given order. Light divided from darkness, sky from sea, dry land rising up out of the water. Then the world is filled. Sun, moon, and stars set like lamps in the heavens, fish crowding the seas, birds thrown across the sky, every creature that walks the earth. And after each day, the same quiet refrain. And God saw that it was good, 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 again and again. This world was meant to be good. And then, on the 6th day, God makes something unlike anything else. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Human beings, male and female, made to carry the image of God himself. Not the sun, not the sea, not the animals. You. And to them, God gives a blessing and a task. Be fruitful, fill the earth, care for it. Then God looks at everything he has made, and this time the word is stronger. It was very good. And on the 7th day, God rests. Not from exhaustion, but like an artist stepping back from a finished work. He blesses that day and sets it apart. The world begins in rest and delight and peace. Then the story does something curious. It tells the beginning again. Chapter 1 gave us the wide view. The cosmos, the galaxies, 6 days seen from far above. Chapter 2 zooms all the way in. To a garden, to the dust of the ground, to a single man. For centuries, readers have seen these as 2 windows onto one act of creation. One majestic and ordered, one intimate and close. And here, up close, we see how tenderly the human story begins. God forms the man from the dust of the earth, and breathes into him the breath of life, a creature of dust and divine breath, both at once. That is what you are. God plants a garden in a place called Eden and puts the man there to work it and keep it. And for the first time in the story, God says something is not good. It is not good for the man to be alone. So God makes a partner suited to him, a woman drawn from his own side. Bone of my bones, the man says, flesh of my flesh. The first poetry ever spoken, and the 2 become one. unashamed, at home with each other and with God. It should have stayed that way. It did not. Into the garden comes a serpent, subtle, watchful, and it begins with a question. Did God really say? 4 words that have unraveled the human heart ever since. It plants a doubt. Maybe God is holding out on you. Maybe he is not really good. There is one tree in the garden the man and woman are told not to touch. And the serpent whispers that the fruit will make them like God, deciding good and evil for themselves. So they take it. They eat. And in that moment, something breaks that no one has been able to fix since. The first thing they feel is shame. They cover themselves. They hide from God. Sin, in Genesis, is not just breaking a rule. It is a fracture between people and God, between people and each other. And there are consequences: pain, toil, thorns in the ground, and exile from the garden, the gates of Eden close behind them. And humanity walks out into a harder world. But even here, in the wreckage, God does not abandon them. He clothes them, and he makes them a promise that one day one of their offspring will crush the head of the serpent. The very first hint of rescue. Hold on to that. It is the seed of everything that follows. Outside the garden, the family grows. 2 brothers are born, Cain and Abel. They bring their offerings to God. And a jealousy takes root in the older brother's heart. God warns him. Sin is crouching at your door. It wants you, but you must rule over it. Cain does not. He rises up in a field and he kills his brother. The first death in the Bible is not old age. It is murder. Brother against brother. And God asks a question that still hangs in the air. Where is your brother? Cain answers with the oldest excuse of all. Am I my brother's keeper? From one act of doubt in a garden, sin has spread into blood on the ground. And it keeps spreading, generation after generation. The world fills up, and it fills up with violence, until the story says something almost unbearable, that God looked at the earth and his heart was grieved. The world he had called very good was now full of ruin. But there was one man, his name was Noah, and Noah walked with God. God tells him a flood is coming to wash the world clean, and he gives him a strange command. Build an ark, a great wooden vessel, big enough for his family and for pairs of every living creature. And Noah, against every reason, obeys. He builds. Then the rains come. The deep bursts open. The waters rise and cover everything. The world returns to the watery chaos it began in, all but the ark riding the flood. And then, slowly, the waters go down. The ark comes to rest. A dove returns with an olive leaf, and Noah steps out onto a washed and quiet earth, into a kind of second beginning. God blesses him with the same words he spoke at the very start. Be fruitful, fill the earth. And God makes a covenant, a promise. Never again will he destroy the world by flood. And he hangs a sign of it in the sky, a rainbow. Every time the bow appears in the clouds, it is God remembering his promise to every living thing. Mercy painted in light. From Noah's sons, the earth is repopulated. Chapter 10 reads like a great family tree of the nations. Every people, every language, every land, traced back to this one family. The whole world related. And then comes the last great story before the whole book turns. The people of the earth, still speaking one language, gather together on a plain. And they say, let us build a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves. A name for ourselves. There it is again, the same reach for the garden fruit, to climb up and be like God on their own terms. So God comes down. and he confuses their language so that they can no longer understand each other, and they scatter across the face of the earth. The place is called Babel because there God confused their speech, and that is where the first movement of Genesis ends, on a scattered, divided, restless humanity, 11 chapters in. And look at where we are. A good world, fractured. A family, splintered by murder. A whole earth scattered and speaking past each other. If you were writing this story, what would God do next? Wipe it clean again? Start over? Give up? He does none of those things. Instead, God does something so quiet you could almost miss it. And it changes everything. He chooses one man. And through that one man, he sets out to bless the whole broken world. This is the great turn of the book. From the cosmos to a single family. From the many nations to one. His name is Abram. An old man in a place called Ur, with a wife named Sarai who has never been able to have children. Nothing about him is special. And that is exactly the point. And to this ordinary man, God speaks. Go, leave your country, your people, your father's house. Go to a land that I will show you. And then comes the promise the entire rest of the Bible will grow out of. Listen closely. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. Do you hear it? At Babel, people grasped to make a name for themselves. Here, God freely gives a name away. And then the line that holds the whole book together. In you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. All the families. Every scattered people from Babel. God's plan is not to abandon the nations. It is to bless them. Through this one family. And Abram, 75 years old, with no map and no child, packs up his whole life and goes. What follows is a long lesson in learning to trust a promise. Because the promise is enormous, and Abram's life is small. He has no land of his own, and no son. One night, God takes him outside and says, "Look up, count the stars if you can, so shall your offspring be." And Abram believes God, and it is counted to him as righteousness. A man made right with God, simply by trusting him. God binds himself to Abram in a covenant and gives them new names. Abraham, Sarah, father and mother of many. Years pass. Long, silent, aching years. The couple grows old, too old, and then, impossibly, laughter. A son is born, and they name him Isaac, which means he laughs. The promise has a heartbeat at last. And then God asks the unthinkable, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and offer him to me on a mountain." The son of the promise. The one thing Abraham cannot bear to lose. God asks for him. And here the story goes very quiet. Abraham rises early. He takes his boy. He climbs the mountain called Moriah. Isaac carries the wood. And he asks the question that must have torn his father in two. Where is the lamb? And Abraham says, God himself will provide the lamb, my son. He builds the altar. He binds his son. He lifts the knife. And a voice tears through the air. Stop. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you trust me. And Abraham looks up, and there, caught in a thicket, is a ram, a substitute. He names the place, "The Lord will provide." On this mountain, God provides. And the promise is renewed once more. Through your offspring, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. The thread holds. Isaac grows. He marries. And he has twin sons who are at war before they are even born, Esau and Jacob. Jacob is the younger, a schemer, a grasper. He cheats his brother out of his birthright and steals their father's blessing. And then, with his brother's fury behind him, he runs. Alone, in the wilderness, with a stone for a pillow, Jacob lies down to sleep, and God meets him there. He dreams of a great stairway set on the earth with its top reaching into heaven, and angels going up and down upon it. And from the top, God speaks the same promise now to him: the land, the descendants, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Jacob wakes, shaken. Surely the Lord is in this place, he says, and I did not know it. This is the house of God, the gate of heaven. He names the place Bethel, and even a liar and a cheat is folded into the promise. Grace given to a man who has earned none of it. Years later, older and richer but still afraid, Jacob has to face the brother he wronged. And the night before, he is left utterly alone by a river. And a man comes and wrestles with him until dawn. All night they struggle. Jacob will not let go. Bless me, he demands. I will not release you until you bless me. And as the sun rises, the stranger touches his hip, and it is wrenched from its socket. Jacob will limp for the rest of his life. And the stranger gives him a new name. No longer Jacob, the grasper. Now Israel, one who wrestles with God. And Jacob names that place Peniel, the face of God. For I have seen God face to face, he says, and lived. He walks away limping, and blessed, and changed, and a whole nation will carry his new name forever: Israel. Jacob, now Israel, has 12 sons, and those 12 sons will become the 12 tribes of Israel. The single family is growing into a people, just as God promised under the stars so long ago. And the book saves its longest, most beautiful story for last: the story of Joseph. Joseph is the favorite son, and his brothers hate him for it. His father gives him a coat, and dreams fill his head. So his brothers seize him, throw him into a pit, and sell him as a slave to traders heading down to Egypt. And here is where you would expect the promise to die: sold, enslaved, carried off to a foreign land. In Egypt, Joseph rises and is falsely accused and thrown into prison. Down and down and down, but the story keeps whispering 4 quiet words: the Lord was with him. And then, from a prison cell, Joseph is called to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh himself. 7 years of plenty, he warns, then 7 years of famine. Prepare now, and Egypt will survive. And in a single day, the forgotten slave becomes the second most powerful man in Egypt, the one who will keep a whole region alive. Then the famine comes, and it reaches all the way back to Canaan, to Jacob and his sons. Starving, they travel down to Egypt to beg for grain, and they bow before a governor they do not recognize. It is Joseph, the brother they sold, holding their lives in his hands, and he could destroy them. Instead, he weeps, and he forgives, and he says the words that gather up the meaning of the whole book: you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. God meant it for good. Every pit, every prison, every wrong turn, quietly woven by God to save many lives. The family is reunited, and they come down to Egypt, 70 of them, to survive the famine together. And that is where Genesis ends. Not in the garden, not in the promised land. It ends with a coffin in Egypt, and a family far from home, holding on to a promise not yet kept. Joseph's last words are not goodbye. They are a promise passed on. God will surely come for you, and carry you up out of this land. 50 chapters. Look at the distance we have traveled. We began with the birth of the universe, light and galaxies and seas, and we end with one small family in Egypt, waiting. That is the shape of Genesis, from a cosmos to a family, and underneath it all, one unbroken thread. God creates a good world and blesses it. Humanity fractures it, and the fracture spreads, from a garden to a murder to a scattered earth. But God does not walk away. He chooses one family, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Not because they are strong or good. They lie and scheme and fail. He chooses them anyway, because grace was always the point. And through that one flawed family, he sets out to do the very thing he promised on the first page of their story, to bless every family on earth. That promise runs like a river through the whole rest of the Bible. And Genesis is the spring where it begins. So the next time you read those 5 old words, "In the beginning, God created," remember that they are not just about how the world began. They are about the God who starts things, the God who does not give up on what he has made, who takes a fractured world and one ordinary family and quietly begins to make everything new. That is the book of beginnings. And in a very real way, its story is still not over. Because the blessing that started with one family was always meant to reach yours.